G'day guys, SamiX2 here, just another Rugby 24 video today, and today we are looking at possible licensing for Rugby 24. Now we know yesterday we just got the news that the game has been delayed, and as unfortunate as that is, I really do believe that is the right decision to help us get the best rugby game we can. And we've got a bit of news in this announcement. I briefly touched on it yesterday in my delayed video announcement, but I am going to go over it a bit more today. So what I'm looking at today is licensing. So as you can see where my cursor is here, the team has been working hard to adjust the gameplay, represent the sport as accurately as possible, and integrate all the officially licensed teams, which include over 130 countries and 15 leagues. Now, when the game first got announced, Rugby 24 did announce 130 nations, but there was a bit of confusion around that. Like 130 nations, is that like 130 teams in total from like national domestic competitions, or is that actually 130 international teams? Because we've never seen that kind of depth in a rugby game before. Now, even if it is 130 teams, which I really hope it is, there's no doubt going to be a bit of a drop off in quality once you go past the 25, but still the amount of detail and thought that they're putting into this to get 130 players, 130 teams, national teams, and then have all those players there as well. It really just adds to the aspect and layers of the games that we hopefully get. And if there is an ultimate team, the amount of players, if there is an ultimate team game mode, the amount of players we have to choose and build up from is just insane. And think of the career modes as well, like starting in like a really low ranked team with low rated players from those like lower countries, and then having to build your way up. It just adds more layers, it adds more depth to the game, and I think it's the really right decision. But anyway, moving into what those 130 countries are and where they might come from, because I'm sure some of you are thinking 130 countries in rugby, you hardly even see the top 50 play. And you're not wrong, the rugby world is really split up into tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, goes on from there. But if you head on over to the World Rugby website, on their member unions and regions thing, it says World Rugby is an international federation and global movement comprising of 132 national member unions. So, and they come from Asia Rugby, Rugby Africa, Rugby Europe, Oceania, Rugby Americas North and South America. So there's 114 full member unions and 18 associate member unions. And then when you go down here, you can see all the teams. Like, there's a huge list. You got big teams like Australia. Hold on, I'm gonna miss some. Argentina, Australia. Like Canada's up in the top 25. You got England, Fiji, France. Then some of these other countries as well. So if they're announcing over 130 national teams, you're assuming that every single one of these unions is going to be included. So playing as Barbados, the Bahamas, Bermuda, you can, if you've got one mate that's a lot better than you can set them up with Lesotho, and you can be playing as the All Blacks and see if they can if you can finally get a win against them. But I don't know, like there's some crazy stuff, and I know they've got a bit of confirmation with this as well, because if you couple it here, Big Ant Studios has posted a while ago that they were wishing luck to Lesotho in the Africa Sevens competition. So they're sponsored Lesotho, and they've also have a few other posts on their Twitter where they're sponsoring countries like Rwanda in Africa. So like that really just adds a bit of credibility to the fact that they are getting 130 countries, because they've got they're sponsoring these lower ranked teams. And I know another thing as well, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of Rugby. He's a guy that was really campaigning for a new rugby video game, and he's actually on board the Big Ant Studios team now as the licensing guy. So I feel like he was really into lower ranked and lower tiered rugby. So if of him being the official licensing guy, I think that's where all these countries and leagues have come from. But now moving over to, I've made a little document here. They also said 15 leagues in the announcement. We didn't have that information before. When the game first got announced, all we knew was that the Rugby World Cup, Top 14, Pro D2, and the URC was included. There was a few rumors floating around that Major League Rugby in America and Canada was going to be included. And we also knew that the Rugby Challenge 4 series had been taken off stores due to licensing issues, so that would have freed up the licenses for Super Rugby and Premiership Rugby. However, we haven't had any official announcements, but 15 leagues is huge. If that does come through, this is definitely the biggest and most contact-packed rugby game we've ever had. I've done a bit of speculating about the 15 leagues, so let's have a look here. In bold, in here, we have the ones that were previously announced. So the Rugby World Cup isn't really a league, but they splashed all the cash on Rugby World Cup licensing, so I'm assuming they're still going to include it in the game. So the Rugby World Cup will be their top 14 URC and Pro D2, and then I've kind of split them into tiers. So we've got the international competitions at the top here, the Rugby World Cup, Six Nations, and the Rugby Championship. That takes it to 3 leagues. Then we've got the top 14 URC, which we already knew about, English Premiership, Super Rugby Pacific, that takes it to 4. We got 4 in this category. And then this is kind of like the second tier of the domestic competitions. We got Pro D2, which you knew about, which is the French second division, Curry Cup, which is South Africa's competition below URC, the New Zealand NPC, which is their competition, and then Major League Rugby and the Japanese Rugby League 1. So we've got we've got 12 leagues so far. And then, assuming that these competitions are included, it makes sense that they would also license the European Champions Cup and Challenge Cup, because that is no additional teams. It's just literally the branding of those competitions, because it's comprised of teams from top 14 URC Premiership. So that takes it to 14. And then I wasn't sure what the 15th competition might be. I thought they could go for the second tier of English rugby, which would be very cool. Or they could go for Super Rugby Americas, which features teams from Argentina, Brazil, Chile. There's a few other teams in there. And then that takes it to 15 in total. Now, if that does come through, that is huge. Like, I'm going to keep saying it because licensing is one thing. You know, it adds replayability. Like I said before, if you're starting a career mode where your player starts, if you're managing a team from the low ranks, and if you only have top 14 URC and Pro D2 license, you know, you're going to start in the Pro D2, the next thing you know, you're in the top 14. Like, there's not many layers to that. Whereas if you have something like this, you can start in the RFU Championship, or if there's a Be a Pro mode, you can start in the Curry Cup and New Zealand NPC, and then you get a contract in the RFU Championship, and then you make your way to the Premiership, and then you make your way into the English team, and then you make your way to the Rugby World Cup. Like, there's a lot of different paths there, and I think it just really adds a lot of depth to the game and replayability. So I don't know, guys, we don't really have much news at the moment, but that thing saying 15 leagues is huge. And as we can see, they're trying to get all the 3D photos done, so we have like player portraits and whatnot. So I think even though the game's been delayed and we're really disappointed about that, it's really shaping up to be a content-packed and looking like one of the best rugby games we've had in a while. Like, I'm a bit dubious still, we haven't seen any gameplay or screenshots, but it's all on the right track and I'm keen to see more. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to get notifications on all my videos. Also, if you head on over to the links on my channel, I've got a Discord there now for all things Rugby 24 related. And if you can't find it that way, just click community and scroll down. I've got a post here. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.